see the images, right? The thunder of a North Korean military parade. And there, a single figure, standing with just a faint smile. That's not just some observer. That is Kim Yo-jong, sister of the supreme leader Kim Jong-un. And behind that very unassuming face is a figure that many people now call.
And that title? It isn't just hyperbole from critics. It's a warning. It comes from experts who are telling us that she should not be underestimated. So in this explainer, we're going to look inside the closed world of North Korea to trace how this woman silently, almost invisibly, wove a web of absolute power. A woman who strikes with ruthless precision and then disarms with a smile. You see, her story doesn't begin in the spotlight. It begins in the deepest shadows of the regime. A life that was intentionally, deliberately hidden from the world until the perfect moment arrived. She was born sometime in the late 80s. Even her exact birth year is a state secret. Then, in 1996, she was sent to a private school in Bern, Switzerland, registered under a fake name. It was there, living in a monitored apartment with undercover bodyguards, that her bond with her brother, the future dictator Kim Jong-un, was really forged in total isolation. She came back to Pyongyang, got a degree in computer science, and then just vanished back into the state machine until her father's funeral in 2011. That brief appearance? It was a clear signal to the inner circle. A new player was on the board. For years, the world only saw her in these minor roles, holding documents, or famously holding an ashtray for her chain-smoking brother. But the reality was so much more significant. At just 23, she became his tour manager. And that's not an assistant, that's the architect of his every public move, every travel route, every single security detail. The world saw a helper, the regime saw the protector of its future.
Her first real position of power wasn't in policy, it wasn't in the military, it was something far more fundamental to the regime's survival, controlling the story.
So in 2014, she was named Vice Director of the Propaganda and Agitation Department. But within a year, she was its de facto commander. In a state where information is a weapon, she had just become the chief armorer.
And from that position, she meticulously engineered her brother's public image. She actually modeled his persona on their grandfather, Kim Il-sung, who's treated like a god in the country. Every photograph, every single public statement was controlled to project this very specific blend of strength and a kind of manufactured benevolence. She wasn't just supporting the dictator, she was building him. Her work was so effective, and the censorship was so absolute that it drew international condemnation. In 2017, the US Treasury put her on its sanctions list, holding her directly responsible for the regime's severe human rights abuses. The mythmaker was now an official international target.
So, after mastering the image of power at home, her next move was onto the world stage. And here she would project a completely different image: peace. The year was 2018. The event? The Winter Olympics in South Korea. The world was about to get its first real look at Kim Yo-jong. I mean, when her plane landed, it was a huge moment in history. The first member of the ruling Kim dynasty to visit South Korea since the Korean War. And she deployed this smile that just captivated the global media. She projected a soft image, dining with South Korean leaders, delivering a personal letter from her brother. The world saw a potential breakthrough in relations, but geopolitical analysts? They saw her true expertise at work. This wasn't diplomacy. It was a perfectly executed propaganda operation designed to fracture international sanctions and resolve against the North.
That smile? It was a temporary tactic. When nuclear talks with the US later failed and her brother's health came into question, the world heard her true voice for the first time, and it was not diplomatic. In April 2020, Kim Jong-un was missing from public view. That's when she issued her first personal statement. The message was crystal clear. If the brother is absent, the sister is in command. She dismissed South Korea's complaints as just the sound of a frightened dog that barks. And her contempt wasn't just for her neighbors, it extended to global superpowers. She referred to US President Joe Biden as an old man with no future, a level of direct personal insult you just don't see in formal international statements. And for those who managed to escape the regime, her language is even more venomous. She calls them human scum and filthy insects and threatens them with a terrible price for what she calls their betrayal. These weren't just empty words. They were followed very quickly by action. On her direct order in June 2020, North Korea demolished the North-South Liaison Office,
a building that stood as the last symbol of diplomatic hope. It was reduced to dust.
In North Korea, the path to power is cleared of rivals. Intelligence reports suggest her mind was behind the gruesome 2013 execution of her own uncle for perceived disloyalty. She's also been linked by security analysts to the 2017 assassination of her half-brother Kim Jong-nam. And more recent, unconfirmed reports claim high-ranking officials have been executed simply for failing to show her adequate respect.
All of these actions, they've solidified her position. She is no longer just an advisor. She is now the clear and undisputed heir to the North Korean state. You have to understand, her official titles mask her real power. Sure, she's the propaganda vice director, but in reality, she's the de facto #2 leader of the entire country. As a member of the State Affairs Commission, she's effectively a co-dictator on policy. And in a regime where only the supreme leader used to speak, she has become its primary mouthpiece.
This isn't an accident, it is strategy. If Kim Jong-un were to be removed from the equation, the rules of succession point directly to her. His own children are far too young to rule. In the brutal calculus of the Kim dynasty, she is the only remaining viable option.
Look, history has seen ruthless female rulers, but none of them had the unique combination of tools she stands to inherit. She wouldn't just command an army, but a cult of personality that she herself built. She wouldn't just control a country, but a completely sealed information state, and she would have her finger on a nuclear button.
The world once saw a silent assistant. Today, she is North Korea's most powerful woman. The question isn't if she is dangerous anymore. The question is, should her brother fall, is the world even remotely prepared to face its first female nuclear-armed dictator?